Hi class. So we are starting World War One this week. This is a very large unit in social studies, and we're going to be breaking it up into 2 weeks. So this week we are learning about the beginning of World War One, and we're going to finish the end of World War One whenever we come back from December break. So just wanted to make that known. So we're focusing on the beginning of World War One, and by the end of this unit, we're going to be able to explain how German attacks on U.S. shipping during the war in Europe ultimately led to the United States to join the fight against Germany. Um, I'm also going to include the sinking of Lusitania and concerns over safety of U.S. ships. Let's go ahead and get started. So it's important for you to know that World War One began in Europe, and this is Europe. So Europe is on a different continent, and it actually is a different continent. It's way far away from where we live in the U.S. So in 1914, a storm was brewing in Europe, and I don't mean like a weather storm, I mean like a tensions, social, people are fighting type of storm. So in 1914, Austria-Hungary was in control of land that another country, Serbia, believed that it owned. And you're going to learn a word in 5th grade called assassination. That is whenever somebody who is famous or specifically a political person is assassinated or murdered. So on June 28, 1914, a Serbian spy assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. This was the day that World War I officially began. And this is referred to as the shot that started the war. The royal couple was touring the city in an open car when the Serbian spy threw a bomb in their car. The bomb rolled off the back of the car and wounded some bystanders. Later that day, the car made a turn where the Serbian spy just happened to be standing. Seeing his chance, the spy fired into the car, shooting Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. They both died within the hour. How sad. So this meant war. The Archduke's murder caused Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia. And you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with the United States? We're going to get there. So choosing sides. At first, the war only involved the countries of Austria-Hungary and Serbia, but it did not take long to pull in other countries around the world. So it started between just two countries, and then people started to choose other people to try to help them and back them up. So the alliances uh, or the teams that we have for World War I at this point, we have Serbia on the Ally side and Austria-Hungary. So those two started the war and they're the biggest ones that are fighting at this point in World War I. Then Serbia asked Russia for help, and then France for help, and then Belgium for help, and Great Britain for help, and Italy for help. So they have a lot of people backing them up to try to help them. Well, Austria-Hungary saw that the Allies were gaining power and they wanted people to be on their side, so they asked Germany to help, the Ottoman Empire, which is where Turkey is now, Bulgaria, and those were the countries that were fighting against each other at this point. So it's not our fight. The US did not want to be involved in the war. President Woodrow Wilson, which is that guy you see in the bottom right-hand corner, thought that the US should remain neutral and that isolationism was the best option for the country. That underlying word, isolationism, means to stay out of it and make sure that you don't get involved. Helping from the sideline. With an ocean between the United States and Europe, it was pretty easy to stay isolated. The US helped the Allied powers by using merchant ships to send food to devastated areas in Europe. So essentially, they sent cruise ships that were disguised as merchant liners and just with people on it, they hid supplies to deliver to the devastated areas in Europe. So they were trying not to be involved, but they're being pretty sneaky about it. The US also helped block food from going to Germany, so they're kind of helping even though they're trying not to help. But sadly, Germany used its underwater boats, also known as U-boats or submarines, to sink ships in the Atlantic Ocean. The Germans were trying to keep supplies from reaching Great Britain. So the Germans found out that the US was helping and they started sinking some ships, which this is whenever the US became involved in World War I officially. So the Lusitania was a cruise ship, and on May 7th, 1915, a German submarine shot a torpedo and sank the British passenger ship, the Lusitania. A total of 1,198 people died, including 128 Americans. So just for some back reference, the Lusitania was a British cruise ship, and it looks a lot different than the cruise ships that we see today, which is on the top right. It did not look like that. It looked like the bottom left picture. So the Germans sank the ship because they believed there were weapons on board. The US hid the weapons on the passenger ship, intending to help Great Britain win the war. And enough is enough. In 1917, several more American merchant ships were sunk by the Germans. The US had had enough. America joined the war officially as an ally of Great Britain, so they are on the Allied powers. So the Allied powers are the US, Great Britain, Italy and France, and Serbia, and they are fighting against Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, and Germany. So that's it for the beginning of World War I. The conclusion to World War I is not a very happy one, and we'll cover that once we come back from